You think we should just kick it off? All right. It's not like a ton this time. A lot of what I was going to discuss too kind of got destroyed by POTUS. But okay, so one of the big there's still two big undecided things, which is the two changes to the consensus layer that are in this spec, or the changes to a validator status, which is like, is a validator consolidated and is it compounding withdrawal credentials? Um, and like, how do we do that? There's three options for each. Um, you make a beacon chain operation that you gossip around is option one. You make a beacon chain operation that you don't gossip and have to wait for a block proposal is option two. And you make it execution layer initiated is option three. Now, making things, um, I mean, they have various trade-offs, obviously. Not gossiping is a little less complex. Um, Gossiping is a little better UX. Specifically, when we talk about consolidations, there is a big benefit that comes from making an execution layer initiated in that um, this allows you to consolidate validators which don't have the same withdrawal credentials if it's execution layer initiated. So that's definitely something we'd want to consider. Um, it's a little more work on the execution layer, is my understanding.
Yeah, I'm
You would
against
need a
that.
signature from both, right? Like
Um,
from both EOAs.
I don't think so. I mean, I can't. It's a good question, but I don't think so. I mean, if someone consolidates their validator into yours, they've just given you free ETH. Like,
But then they could get you slashed. I guess, yeah,
no, you have the keys.
once it's
They've just
yeah,
dropped
once it
their balance onto you.
yeah, guess they can send you 32 ETH whenever they want.
Yeah, true.
I mean, you can do that. I can deposit a validator and set up withdrawal credentials your address. I could do that today. But I think the point is, I don't see who's gonna use this. So
Who
all the big pools that want to consolidate, they have common withdrawal credentials. Um,
Rocket
Even
Pool,
single
Rocket
people
Pool
that
would absolutely use
no
this.
Rocket Pool cannot use that because they need attributability. If they consolidate across mini pools, then they lose track of whose ETH is that.
No, the same node operator would consolidate. The issue there, I mean, there
Yeah,
are,
but the vast majority of operators have one validator, or at least that's what I saw.
yes, but well, yes and
So
no.
the point is, like,
There
do we
are actually,
wanna add this complexity for marginally include a little bit more of users or not? And like the
yeah.
point is,
Hmm.
consolidation is a transitory operation. Like once we consolidate, it's useless. Everyone that deposits into the chain should choose a consolidation factor that's okay to them. So like having something that's not baked into the protocol would allow us to not accumulate more debt.
Having something that's not baked in the protocol would allow us to not accommodate more. What?
Technical debt.
Yes. Okay.
So something like the merge is completely useless now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. But I just wanted to say that they are already considering a redesign, irrespective of this of MaxEB, and that it would already require people to withdraw and then redeploy so that they could use the same contract for multiple mini pools, which lowers their collateral requirements. So I like people do, at least in there, want this, even irrespective of consolidating. It's a way of not having to withdraw. But yeah, that's a good point.
Like
Um,
also the reality is there is no benefit for the individual to consolidate. It's only a benefit for the network. So as long as sufficient share of the network can consolidate, we are fine. If Rocket Pool doesn't consolidate, it doesn't really matter unless they have a big share of the network.
Oh, they will consolidate. Like I said, the upgrade that they're doing is already moving them to the same contract. Like the next Saturn upgrade or whatever is like, and again, irrespective of even MaxEB, they were already moving in this direction, and people get lower collateral requirements for doing this, but they're going to have to withdraw and redeploy. Um, so the yeah, it's like consolidating on top of that. It makes a little difference. It's just that this is one way they can implement that. But yeah,
So if you want to make it execution triggered, unless you have a general buffer, we need to have a separate contract to handle these messages.
Yeah,
And that's non-trivial.
yeah, true. Okay.
Yeah, speaking about technical debt, if we want consolidation to be triggered from kind of like from the EL, I was kind of thinking about that. We could probably rather have a withdrawal creds rotation triggered by EL, which enables consolidation between different creds, so you can change the credentials. This credential rotation is something, if it even desired by stakers, it has much more use. It just has a wider use cases than just consolidation. So not to implement something for really narrow use case, but for a more broad use case could be better.
A rotating operation that could be used even in this scenario, basically in the future. Is that what you mean? Like,
Yeah.
Can I claim scope creep?
Sorry, what?
no, he's
Scope
not, I
creep.
don't think he's proposing that for this
Oh
fork.
no, not for this hard fork. Definitely not.
Okay, then good.
Credentials rotation was also going to be problematic for some things like restaking. Like that was this proposed solution if we wanted to kill restaking, this credentials rotation. So I'm not sure we would go into that lightly.
No, I think like that's if you can rotate with the signing keys. We're talking about this would have to be the execution layer address that the funds are locked to initiating the rotation.
Yeah, exactly. That would kill. That's what if I'm not mistaken, that's what Dankreb was talking about, the solution to killing off things like restaking. If we wanted to do that, would be to allow changing of the withdrawal address.
I think he meant via the signing keys, like the validator keys, not via the execution keys.
I'm not sure, but we'd want to be really careful and validate that. The other thing I was thinking is if we were going to do it on the consensus layer, there's no reason not to gossip it. Like we shouldn't lock it to having to be on the same node to build the block because gossip's not that hard.
Yeah, I agree that it's not terribly difficult to add a gossip topic, actually. It's just one place where we could make it simple, but it's like as long as we have a condition that mitigates spam that's quick to check, then adding a gossip topic for any of these operations is trivial.
It's a lot less complicated than BLS withdrawals was going to be, so and we got through that.
What are the other beacon operations right now? I guess upgrading your upgrading your withdrawal credential for sure. Deploying.
There's no other like that's the only operation that isn't involved in consensus necessarily, I guess you would say. Like there's attestations and there's exits and there's
Yeah, I mean not with consensus. But deposits are processed by the beacon chain too, right? I guess they start as transactions and then get pulled into the beacon chain.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's all changing in Electra obviously as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think those would be gossip. Those would be pulled right out of the block, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, they
So
come
it's
via the get payload or whatever.
yeah, so it's just the BLS update thing that changes the
it's just the
if that's a
BLS state where you have like an arbitrary operation that could come at any time, and that and exits.
oh yeah,
But
exits,
they
right?
are
Is the,
limited. Yeah, they are limited in their but they're only consensus layer, so they don't need to go through the whole execution layer thing.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I
But
mean
they both have exit
all of these things
topics.
it's almost better if it goes through the execution layer because then you know how to price it, right? Like the issue here generally is like there's no incentive for someone to include any exits or any BLS like credential updates, right?
No, there's not, but there's also no reason not to because you've got the space in the block. So um
Yeah, but that makes your block
from the
bigger
no,
potentially.
it makes
Like,
the block the same size. There's a fixed amount of data there that's either blank or not blank.
hmm,
So you've got a couple more things in the block, but we didn't see any problems with including BLS in the block. Every client, after a number of epochs, every client was listening to the topic and putting in any blocks they built. So that's definitely an
yeah,
option.
Yeah, we didn't incentivize BLS withdrawal credentials either, or like changes. We
yeah, I
never.
know.
Well,
I'm just saying,
the
like,
incentive
as a
really is that
pattern,
everyone's doing it.
yeah, but like as a pattern, if it gets to be that like as constructing a block, I have to listen to like 20 other topics and stuff my block with things that don't pay me, it's just like, why bother? Like, I'm just gonna turn off those ports or whatever. You know what I mean? Like at some point, like I don't think it
That
feels
happened.
right.
You,
But
you you could
That
totally
happened
do
on
that, but
BLS topic.
we kind of rely on honest majority. And as long as someone
yeah,
includes it eventually, then you're fine.
Yeah.
yeah,
And the advantage is for non-Lido people that they're likely to get it into a block earlier than have to wait for their own. So it's fair to do. You just update the honest validator that they're adding them to the blocks when they see them.
yeah. No, no, I understand fully. It's just like it doesn't feel like every fork we should add a new thing that we rely on honest majority to do just for the sake of design. Like it feels weird to me.
It
But
makes
I mean,
sense
you guys
in terms
are
of
more
like,
than that.
The advantage of it, though, is that you can do all the validation that you need, whereas coming from the execution layer, they pay the gas regardless, and the outcome may or may not happen, and there's no real validation that you can do. So
however,
people have to wait.
while that is the case, if you look at the actual validation conditions, at least on the consolidations, well, on credential changes, it doesn't matter anyway, kind of, because like you're gonna know if your validator's withdrawal credentials have changed or not. So you're not gonna just keep repaying to put that in a block. Similarly, most of the validation conditions on initiating a consolidation are the same, where you're gonna know whether or not you've already consolidated or like if your validator's exited or slashed or something like that. The only one where it's a little bit harder is that there's at least as far as I can tell, the condition is that there's 16 million ETH in the Beacon chain uh staked. Like active balance is at least 16 million ETH.
What's that for?
That's for the max like the churn limit check is what it kind of boils down to. If you like, it's that assert get consolidation churn limit greater than min active balance. I
Oh, okay. That's the min activation balance. Okay.
I believe that it basically boils down to like assert that there's at least 16 million ETH.
Yeah, to be able to start the network.
So the rest of the validations are, I mean, you should just be able to get it in, as far as I can tell.
Wait, does that mean if all the ETH starts leaving, the last 16 million is stuck in there? Like you can't like there's zero
Yeah.
churn. Is that
Yeah.
whoa.
I
That's
think
kind of
so.
crazy.
Unless we change the exit rules.
Yeah.
That's the minimum balance for the network.
I mean, that kind of makes sense because, like, oh, I don't know.
No, it makes sense. But like if you could imagine a world where you're at like 17 million ETH and people realize like, oh shit, like I can't get out if I don't get out now. There's like a massive
Bank
rush
run.
for the exit.
Sorry, where do you see that there is a minimum balance? Like the churn has a minimum value of 4.
A minimum active balance. The minimum, what is it? Activation balance for the network. I don't know whether that stops exits towards the end.
No, so that the network will always allow at least 4 validators per epoch to exit.
Regardless of the balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that makes
Wait,
more sense. I guess maybe
wait,
the 16 million thing was just to start the chain. Like,
To
yeah,
start the network, it definitely was.
that's the
Yeah.
genesis
But
condition.
I don't
Yeah.
know whether it's on the exit.
And from what I can tell, that condition is maintained in order to consolidate a validator, you have to have at least that.
Wait, sorry, we are very derailed. Can we focus on MaxEB?
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
to do with,
Well, if it is part of the consolidation rules, that is focusing on MaxEB.
yeah,
okay.
but
So if that's a rule for MaxEB, why is it there?
What rule? Sorry.
that,
Around the activation balance.
yeah, get consolidation churn limit greater than min active balance boils down to there's more than 16 million ETH on the chain. So they got.
Yeah, so I think maybe Miguel can also explain. So Francesco come to a realization that churning balance is equivalent to exiting. So to keep with like the weak subjectivity window the same, we have to share the churn. If let's say that we allow the consolidation churn to be equal to the exit churn, that would be equivalent to doubling the churn. So we reduce the weak subjectivity window. So that's why one subtracts from the other.
But we're not changing the balance, so that's the one I find interesting.
We're not changing which?
We're just moving 32 ETH from validator A to validator B, so I don't see how that changes the weak subjectivity.
So I may not be able to defend it, but if you trust Francesco, believe that this is a correct statement.
Okay.
it's about the slashability thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
you need, in order for weak subjectivity to work, you need accountable safety for all of that ETH, and that ETH will not be slashable. Let's see. Well, it'll be slashable during the whole withdrawal, like up until the exit epoch. So I think it was just like it was the easiest thing to do the consolidations, right? Like that's why. If you
Yeah, the
just
two
churn it
options.
through,
Yeah, I mean, I think even if we keep track of the indexes and we slash later, it was still unsafe. You could still
Okay.
finalize 2 competing chains.
yeah.
It looks like you also still earn validator rewards for both validators during the whole consolidation process, right?
Not the exit. So you earn it, or sorry, you earn it up to the exit epoch, but not between exit and withdrawable epoch.
But those are
That's in the
like 24-hour differences or something.
right. Yeah, you earn it for like most of it for sure. Let me find the doc consolidation. Yeah.
I think
Yeah, so you
one
earn
point
it
that,
for,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, one point that's not maybe obvious in the spec, but in practice that would play out. If you are a pool and you want to minimize your um, not earned revenue due to consolidation, you will have to coordinate with everyone in the network to not trigger churn. Say that Coinbase said everyone consolidate at once. They consolidate all the indexes at once. They would have a very large amount of validators on the queue. And I think that's suboptimal. I think
No, but
I
that
may have
doesn't matter because they're still earning rewards while they're in the exit queue.
right. Okay. So
But
the
you're getting 60
inactivity period
bucks.
will only extend if they get slashed. Otherwise, it's always 27 hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Easy.
Wait, what? Sorry, what was that last part? It's only longer if they get slashed.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Once you slash, you get a long period of before you can withdraw.
Yeah, that is cool. All right, good. And then, okay, so then just as we, okay, so it sounds like there's a fair amount of pushback into making this execution layer initiated in terms of consolidation. So probably going to end
I
up
don't
being,
mind either way, honestly. I
okay.
can
Yeah,
see the
personally,
benefit of doing it on the consensus layer.
I'm very against gossip. I would be okay with execution, but I'm tentatively against.
Really? That's funny.
So what would your
Well, I mean,
preference be? You're against both things.
No, well, then he's for not gossiping and but
uh,
Well,
it's
that's just
an order
crazy.
of, it's an order of preference. It's like don't gossip, execution layer, gossip is what it sounds like.
so what I say is no gossip, no execution. Inclusion method is purely via the API, and that's it.
Yeah, so then people are going to have groups of validators that get together to try and consolidate in smaller pools. That's just crazy.
Taking pools.
Mm, I don't think it's that
So if
crazy.
I've only
Like
got two validators that I want to consolidate, then I have to somehow, I'm only going to be building a block twice a year. I'm not going to be waiting for that.
No, but we have already done that. Like for withdraw credentials, there was an initiative to rescue people that got hacked. So we built an off-chain database of sign withdraw credential changes, and then that got distributed into teams who submitted that to clients, and then on the fork, everyone included. So some mechanism like that, probably dynamic. We could totally do that and have some sidecar that runs along the, I don't know, like the easiest implementation would be some process that runs along the thing, pulls this database, and then if it sees a new consolidation, it just posts it to the beacon node. That's very easy to do, and we don't have to add any extra code to the clients, and it just gets the job done during consolidation. Then we forget about it.
I mean, that's less code on the like shared code that needs to be implemented among all clients. But if you just gave this to one person, it would be certainly easier for them to implement a gossip topic on their client.
I mean, we could do that functionality on the client, just pull some URL and get consolidations from it.
You put that on the client, I think that's
That's way more code than just
code.
listening to a gossip topic. The BLS topic wasn't complicated. There are only a handful of rules, so I'm not sure why we would go a whole route of building a set of infrastructure outside of the whole system to cope for the fact that we don't want to build one gossip topic.
Yeah, I guess my
So,
main motivation was to try to make it as simple as possible, the feature, so we get inclusion. Now that we are
so
included,
just
like maybe
offload
we
it
can,
to someone else's problem. We can,
yeah,
but I mean,
kinda.
it's going to be way worse UX, but we can. I just think it would be much cleaner if it was just a gossip topic with the same sort of theory as the BLS, where when the fork starts, you send a random subset to a random number to your different peers, so that you don't just flood the network with all of the rubbish. Like, it worked pretty well. I think that's probably less work, but it just means that the dev teams within the consensus layer have to do it, not some other consortium of people.
Yeah, like the only like I don't think we'd include it in the client because that would make no sense. That would be a ton of work for everybody. But if you didn't gossip it, then maybe some pools would be nice enough to give you an endpoint that you could send your credentials to, but they'd have to build out all that infrastructure and for no reason and just to be nice. It's like, and Rocket Pool doesn't have even the ability to do that. Not that Rocket Pool is the only pool, but then I don't know. I just don't see Lido doing that or Coinbase. So like, uh, so basically,
Yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, I am okay considering it because now that we are included in the fork, we can increase complexity.
Yeah, but it's
We're not increasing there though, right? That was still on the table.
True.
That's not scope creep. That was just MVP as far as I was concerned. If we were going this way, that would be MVP.
Okay.
If I'm recalling correctly, BLS change was tested for several times in DevNets, and there was some spam protection before the fork kind of implemented. Yep. So it was definitely a complexity previously, and if we introduce this message, a gossip topic for it, will it be the same complexity, or we can just leverage on what is already developed for BLS Exchange?
I think the logic around protecting ourselves from getting spammed, that would be able to be reused.
It's going to be like well, because you can validate a BLS credential pretty easily and know if you've already seen one for that address or whatever.
We actually reduce the complexity a lot if we say that we're not listening on that topic until the fall. The biggest problem with BLS was that everyone wanted to listen early to try and schedule it, and that meant that people had huge backlogs to send that were already validated. So
yeah,
if we were just listening from the fork, it becomes a lot less complex.
Yeah, we should definitely do that because there is no incentive and no reason to speed run these consolidations.
Yeah. Yep. And that makes it relatively simple. We just start listening at that time. You can start accepting them at that time, and before the fork, you don't accept consolidations. If we were to go that way, like I said, I'm not against doing EL, but I think that there's some validation that we could do if it was done through consensus layer.
Yeah, like I said, all we really need is like one anti-spam condition that's decent, and then it's trivial.
Well, I guess you can make the argument that adding a gossip topic is technically not a consensus change. Well, it's not a consensus change. No, technically. If we do execution, then it is. We will have to change the block structure. And you can consider that's way more technical debt than a gossip topic that can be removed at a later fork.
And the gossip topic can be removed without a fork.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like you could just stop listening on that topic.
Yeah, and that's what was done with BLS to reduce some of the complexity for some clients. They just didn't listen for a number of epochs after the fork, so that they didn't get flooded.
No, I think Mike is saying about completely removing the code later, which, I mean, if you do network changes without coordination, you can have peering issues and network partition. So it's not that easy, but definitely simpler than a consensus change.
So we might say tentative plan is for a gossip topic to consolidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got something. That's good. Now the next one, which is how do people update their who don't want to consolidate, but they just want to be compounding, right? How do they do that? Now, one obvious way is to make a deposit to the deposit contract. The downside is that takes at least one ETH. And the other downside is that's not actually in the spec right now. We have to put that in. We didn't, that's like missing from the spec.
That's not in the MaxEB spec, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be 3 lines. It's okay. I think we can tie this discussion to custom ceilings because it would, if we allow a deposit to mutate with raw credentials, it's kind of the same feature.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know we were considering custom ceilings actually, but yeah, I'd love to. Let's get on that. Let's talk about that.
So, well, I guess there are two features. So we can have dynamic custom ceilings or just static custom ceilings at deposit time. So
Mhm.
we allow someone to instantiate a new validator with 0x2 and some bytes that define a ceiling that's between 32 and 2000. That's feature one, which should be reasonably simpler to implement.
So you're saying that the rest of the withdrawal credentials byte would be used to specify the ceiling?
Yes.
Bytes 11 through or 1 through 11 or yeah.
Bits. When not
Bytes.
wait,
Bytes,
I mean,
bytes.
you've got that entire padded space that's
Yeah, but
before the
we would use
ETH
some number
credentials.
of those bytes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
wait, we have I thought we only
You have 32
Don't-
bytes, 20 of them use up the address, and then the first 12 are unused. Well, the first one is used to set 0x01 or 0x00,
Yeah.
and then the other 11 bytes are empty.
didn't realize we had that much space. Can I put my name in it?
Yeah, you could.
No.
You can't put anything in there right now, right?
No, it's graffiti.
I
You
think
can
it's
put whatever you
validated
want.
as 00.
It is?
I think there was validation around it being 00. But we might have to change that. But if we're defining a new type anyway, it doesn't really matter, right?
I haven't seen any checks on this span of bytes.
Okay, it
That's
might just
hilarious.
be
I
in our
wonder if
test then.
anyone graffitied in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know in our tests we validate that it's 00, but that
Well,
could
it-
just
Well,
be for our own
actually,
internal stuff.
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
validated.
If there's no check, then that's actually a problem because people who've already set it then will have a ceiling that's like meaningless. You know what I mean?
Well, they'll have 01, so it won't matter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good
If
point.
they
Good
set
point.
it to
Yeah.
02 and they had a ceiling that was meaningless, it's like either the ceiling is lower than the
What-
MaxEB or it's
but-
higher, in which case
Yeah,
they
we should also consider that case because we don't control our deposits and we cannot burn ETH. So anyone can deposit at any time any garbage data. So we should have just some logic to control what happens when you deposit at a random.
Oh, and speaking of which, people can people can withdraw, they can deposit with 0x02 credentials right now.
Yeah.
And if they do, I think they get set to 0x02. And the only way to mitigate this is to iterate to the validator set at the fork time, skim off the extra rewards and stick them in the deposit queue.
Yeah, that's exactly what the spec does right now.
Oh, it does. Oh, we got that now. All right.
Yes.
Cool. I didn't know if that had been brought up yet. Okay. So then it's mostly about this custom ceilings that needs to be hammered on. And I mean also just like, are we cool with you have to have another ETH in order to get your stuff to be compounding? Like
I think it's a compromise that we should take. Again, like MaxEB suboptimal that serves only 98% of users on Electra is much better than fully featured MaxEB in the next fork that serves 100% of the stakers.
true.
Just out of curiosity, where's the background on that one ETH? I'm only commenting
The
about the
minimum
top.
deposit for the deposit contract is 1 ETH.
Fair enough. No, I'm only commenting about the launch pad right now where it allows you to top up a validator. It doesn't make reference to that.
Well, if you send that, at least your withdrawal will be rejected. So if you send us the money, it would just be like reverted the transaction.
But from a user end experience, and it's just me learning it, is the intended outcome to be where a user who puts in 32 ETH has his validator running and then, waits another month and decides, I actually want it to be compounding, that at any point is the intent that at any point in the future, after this gets activated, that an end user could add 1 or 10 or 100 or 500, and then it would just automatically start being compounded?
Yeah,
No, you would have to do a deposit in a specific way, such that the deposit specifies, I want to be compounding.
but the second deposit could be that. The first one could be with 0x01, and then the second deposit could be with 0x02.
Yeah,
right?
but I think his question was that if any top up would trigger switching to compounding, and the answer is no. You can do a deposit that's compounding, and a deposit that's non-compounding.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, humor the ignorance on this, but why wouldn't we want it to be automatically compounding unless a party has set their withdrawal address? It seems like that would be like there's only two outcomes.
So I think it's still an opinionated choice, and forcing this to stakers would not be fine, even though we believe that most of them would prefer that.
But like,
I think for a solo validator, if you were going to change it to compounding, you would never really get to, it would take a very long time to get to 33 ETH and have any extra value. So I think
yeah,
it's
0x0.
I guess my comment is more driven around if you've got the sweep enabled, you'll never hit the compounding. So if you have your withdrawal credentials set, which causes that sweep, which means it always goes back down to 32, you're never going to be compounding.
Yeah, so compounding deactivates the sweep for you. You would not be skimmed. That's the opinionated decision of being to compounding, that you
Yeah.
would not get this scheme.
But he has a different point too, which is like, do we automatically change 0x0 withdrawal credentials to be compounding?
No, definitely not.
Okay. Because I mean, you're not getting skimmed there.
So I think that answers my question that I posted on your HackMD Dapian about if I change from 0x00 to 0x01 and I have a large excess, I still stay 0x01 and that just gets transferred across. I don't automatically go to a 0x02.
Mhm.
Is that right?
This, oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, go, Miguel.
No, you go.
No, I did not understand the question, so go for it.
Ask again.
Okay.
I can ask in a
Yeah.
different way. So if I have BLS withdrawal credentials today, well, at the Electra fork, and I issue a BLS change, and obviously I've been accruing ETH for a fair while, the BLS change would ultimately push me to a 0x01, so I would still be part of the suite.
Yes.
Okay.
What we're discussing to update to 0x02 wire deposit, whom do you think will use this feature or use this approach? I don't think that it will be for, for pools. It will mean like it will make any significant improvement for staking pools. It's just more for solo stakers who want to opt in into compounding crowds. Is it understanding correct?
I'm not sure I understood.
Yeah, I think
mean,
it is
like,
for the solo
whom this
staker
feature
because
will,
the pools can
yeah.
just consolidate, right?
Yeah. This is what
That's
what
the
I'm. Yeah. So I don't think it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like changing credentials during the consolidation process seems fine, but just making it via deposit flow, I don't think it's useful. Maybe I'm
Like
wrong.
also, as a solo staker, you only care about compounding when your active balance goes into 33 ETH. If you are compounding and you have 32 active balance, there is no meaning, there is no difference to you at all. So what you can do
You don't get
is
hit by the sweep and you
yeah,
build.
but wait. So you can be hit by the sweep, you save the sweep, and then when you have 1 ETH, you deposit and you bump into 33. And when you do this bump, you change into compounding credentials. So your experience is identical as having switched at the beginning to compounding, but you wait to the 33 to actually
Yeah.
change on chain.
True.
I just wonder if what we're saying is, do we really need to be able to do this top up to go to 0x02? If pools aren't going to
My,
use it and it's only solo validators.
yeah, but like half of the selling point of this EIP is that it makes solo staking auto compounding. If you don't have a flow for them to actually do that, then it's like we kind of bait and switched them,
Yeah, it
Like
would kind of
personally, I
suck
would
to have
love
to
to
exit.
update my like I would love to update my credential and make it
I think
like 40
yeah, it's a cost reward. So adding this feature has very little cost. It's a purely state transition function. You will have to modify the apply deposit function anyway. Now you just add 4 more lines, and we support this use case. There is no more complexity added. No, we don't have to test
Yeah,
other
so
things.
you
Like
don't have to have a minimum of 1 ETH. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Sorry, I spaced for a second.
well, it's an unfortunate side effect, but otherwise we need to do something way more complex. And again, with the
Or they
example I
have to
said
manually
before,
exit.
true.
Wait, so can we get around the 1 ETH minimum now that we've got 6110 in the same fork? No.
No, the deposit contract you can never be modified.
But do you still have to go through the deposit contract?
Well, otherwise we need to have another message on chain
If they have a
to do a consolidation switch, and definitely not.
Okay, I didn't remember how 6110 worked. Okay, never mind.
He's saying the 4 lines to add would allow you to update your credential through the deposit flow. That's
Yeah.
the minor amount of tech, or the minor amount of like spec change that is required to support the solo staker update.
Which
Yes.
we, yeah, where is there a proposal to not do that?
No, I think we must do that.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it would be
like,
insane if we didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just asking whether it was actually needed because it sounded like it was adding complexity, but if it's a couple of lines, it doesn't matter.
um,
I'm just hesitating updating any withdrawal credentials. I understand that there should be no problems with this kind of update, but anyway, something like Bill's, yeah, not good about it. But that's just it's a weird, probably invariant in
I
my
mean,
head, not the system.
but you're not framing it correctly. Like the withdrawal entity does not change. You just change some information, some metadata associated with the withdraw entity, and that's
Yeah,
very different.
I yeah, I
So
agree.
it feels wrong. I understand that, but there is no concern whatsoever in terms of security.
you mean
Unless someone just wants to grieve somebody and spend and just give this party an ETH and update
No,
the
because
credentials.
the signature still have to be valid. So the switch has to be authorized by the validating key.
And it's
I
going to
see
have to
what you
be the
mean.
same ETH address, right? Like the last 21 bytes or whatever is going to have to
Yeah,
still
exactly.
match.
The
Yeah.
logic should be the address is the same. It was previously 0x1, and the new one has explicitly said 0x2.
And an
Otherwise,
upper and lower limit on the custom feeling and stuff.
so
Yeah, so we'll have to check the BLS key,
deposit?
which is not happening on top ups now.
yeah,
The
of course
BLS
it
key.
is.
No, it'll be a ETH
Yeah,
address.
yeah.
Wait, so the signature of a new deposit has to match?
So the flow for deposits is you first check that the signature is correct, then you see if the signing BLS pub key is in the state. If it is not, then you attach an evaluator record. If it is, then you do a top up. So for the top up flow, we have checked the signature and ensure that the BLS
We
pub
do
key
not
is the one
check
that it should.
we do not check the signature on top up today. So it's a kind of special top up, the third case for deposit processing.
We don't check the signature.
No, we just check the signature only if it's a new validator. There is no such pub key in the registry yet.
Oh, Okay.
So we just should consider like a potential additional computational load, considering 6110, which allows for more deposits in a block. But it should not be a problem anyway.
I guess
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because we don't increase the max. So if someone wants to attack this, the amount of computation is not increased.
Yeah. It's why do we want to check the
Mhm.
signature? Because this 1 ETH kind of protection is not enough. This is what we are thinking.
So you have to authorize the change into compounding. Otherwise,
Yeah.
any entity could do this on you.
Right. And given you 1 ETH, right? Why
Yeah.
not?
For which you can pay a little gas to skim off with a partial withdrawal.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a good point that if we move the signature change on the top-up path, that's a breaking change. And I'm not sure if some staking setup relies on that.
To be honest, I just got a text message on March 21st with someone asking me that very question. But I don't know why. It had something to do with like an audit.
And you're not going to be able to go 0x02 back to 0x01, right?
Yeah,
Good.
that's the other thing.
I mean, we could do the increase balance unconditionally and then only check the signature if they want to do a change.
That's a smart idea. Yeah, why wouldn't, yeah, that's because that's not a breaking,
Yeah, then it's purely additive change.
yeah.
Okay, so we agree we have to do this and we know how. So close topic, kind of, because we don't have too much time left and we should discuss custom ceilings or get into some agreement.
Should also discuss, do you guys want another meeting next week?
No, we can do it in 10 minutes. Come on.
Well,
But yeah, we can also do the meeting, but it will be great to have it now because everyone is working on the spec this week and doing tests. Would be good to have clarity on this.
okay.
So custom ceilings, we have to first decide if do we want to allow them at all, such that you can specify them on deposit. Then if this functionality that we are discussing now of changing your withdraw metadata, if you can change your custom ceilings. And the third topic is when you do a consolidation, automatically today, the target validator, if necessary, switches from 0x1 to 0x2.
Yes,
If we have custom ceilings, which ceiling do we change to?
we can make that part of the consolidation operation if you want. Just add a little field in the consolidation operation. That's one way to handle that. But also,
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty easy.
also like the deposit thing, we could do the same exact thing, can't we? Where you can change your ceiling all day, but you have to have a valid signature on your deposit.
I would have thought the simple thing for consolidation would be that you can only consolidate into a 0x02. So they have to make a transaction to make it 0x02, and then after that they can consolidate to it.
Oh,
Why
the
not?
spec already only validates that either you are 0x01 or 2 right now, which is exactly what you want. Like, why, if you've consolidated a validator into another validator, I mean, you don't want it to be 0x01. Why would you consolidate?
No. So what I'm saying is you can't consolidate into a 0x01 validator. You have to make it 0x02 by going through the normal hoop
That doesn't,
and make one flow. Because then you can set your custom ceiling
but you can set
as
it
part of
via
that flow.
consolidation, or you can set it like to make it 0x, then you need an ETH just to initiate a consolidation. Like that's,
Yeah, and Lido has an ETH.
no, I know, but like,
It's just a matter of you could do that and simplify the flows so that there's one flow to get you to 0x02, and after that you consolidate. That's an option.
But that's very restrictive for little gain.
I don't even know what the game
Well,
is.
it just reduces the code paths, that's all. It's an option to get through a simplifying step.
Oh, just to
But if we
not,
want to go the other way, that's fine.
just
But
to not
the
about
cost
all
is that anyone that wants to consolidate now has to do 2 actions.
yeah.
Yep.
So
The
you are
first
doubling.
time they have to change it to a 0x02, but if they're consolidating 10 validators, they're only doing it to one of those validators and consolidating the rest. It's not a huge onerous task.
I would say so. It's and
You
we are
kind of
just saving some lines of code on our end.
We're
Or
saving complexity if we're going to be doing custom ceilings. That's what
Paul
we're
was
saving.
saying that we reduce the number of places that we have to think about how the credentials could change, which might in the future make the spec
but
easier to read
with
about.
what Mark says, if the consolidation message includes a ceiling uh, integer, that's very simple. I don't see the complexity there.
The complexity is just the vectors. If I've issued 10 consolidations and they all have a different number, which number wins?
I think ceilings should strictly increase.
Yeah, but if they all have a different number and I've issued them all at the same time and they've been gossiped around, then which one wins? It's
The
hard to
biggest,
prove.
the biggest.
I would say the last one, just like
The last one that gets processed, that's the highest. So if it keeps stepping up and then goes backwards, then you can't go
No.
backwards.
It
So
it cannot go backwards. It can only increase. So the biggest.
well,
it's
actually,
complicated.
well, another option. Well, never mind. Another option is just that you hard code the ceiling to like number of validators consolidated times 32 plus 16 or something, whatever. I mean, it's a dumb thing, but like, because like it is kind of weird. I see what you mean that it could only increase, but like, what would it mean if you've consolidated a validator, but you've set but included in that consolidation operation is a something that sets your credential to 45 being the max, and then you've already got 50, you've already got 40, 48 being the max, and then you've already got 16 ETH over the max, and it's just going to get withdrawn. It's just like some of it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. If you put like if you put that your like what do we do if the person makes a consolidation that doesn't make sense when you've consolidated them together, where you've now got 64 ETH, but your consolidation max specifies a max at 48. I guess you could do that and then just skim off the other 16. But that question becomes more like to what Paul is saying, it starts to matter more and more when you start consolidating more and more validators into one, and you have to keep thinking about the math. Not that it's a problem, but
I think
Could
I
be
think we're maybe over engineering this, right? Like if I want to consolidate a ton of validators, I'm just gonna like do the back of napkin math and be like, okay, I need to consolidate 10 validators into this. I'm gonna update the ceiling of that guy to the 10, to 320 ETH and then do the 10. And then if I'm a tiny bit over, then it'll just withdraw the remainder in the sweep. Like I don't think we have to be prescriptive there.
sure.
Yeah, I don't see the point decreasing the ceilings.
Also, remember the other edge case, a lot of folks that have validators may have different, and they may choose not to consolidate it on the consensus layer. They may go back down to the execution layer and make a deposit all over again.
Well, do you mean that you can never decrease the ceiling
Yes,
via any method, not deposit? Okay.
correct.
No, it should be not allowed. And
Yeah,
I think
that
that
would be
having
complicated.
custom ceilings update custom ceiling through deposit flow can work even for the case where there was consolidated before and If no custom ceiling is set, it's just treated as the max effective balance. So it is like 1048, and whether will need to just make a deposit to make it a pop to update custom ceiling, as well as with switching from 0x01 to 0x02.
So some flow that we may want to consider is, say, if some operator, big operator, has 10,000 keys and chooses to hedge their risk on MaxEB and first consolidate to a factor of 4, but with the intention to consolidate another factor of 4 later, if everything is fine, we should support that.
Yeah.
So I think it's not that bad of an idea that we are opinionated in the custom ceiling, and whenever you consolidate, we just sum the consolidation, like the ceilings, and set the target to the sum of the sources.
That's yeah, that I would say that's kind of what I meant, where it's either the sum, or if we have a field that allows you to, the field has to be greater than the sum.
How could be it the sum of all of those? I mean, like in protocol, we can't make it trackable.
What do you mean trackable?
I mean, like if you have 4 validators and you consolidate, you have 4, you have 3 consolidation messages, and so you want to set your validator to a sum of all those balances. So you can do it in protocol because there is no accumulator for this sum. Those are different messages. Or am I missing the idea? Or will we just send the custom ceiling within the message?
You could put the custom ceiling in the consolidation message. The only thing I was saying is, like, it would be good if the consensus layer either had the consolidation be invalid at the beginning of the queue, like before being put in the queue, if it's less than what the sum would be, or ignores the value and just makes it the sum of all validators if it's less than the sum of all validators, something like that.
Yeah, the problem is putting it in the queue. Oh, I guess if you mean putting it in like the queue on the state, not putting it in like a gossip queue.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Because you'd have to go through all pending things in that queue to know.
Well, I guess you could do it step by step. So when you process the first consolidation, you look what's the ceiling of the custom of the source, what's the ceiling of the target, and then you update the target. When you process the next consolidation, then you do the same process again, and you will eventually end up with the sum of them without any extra information on the queue.
You sure we could handle this in 10 minutes, Lions?
I can see it being more likely that people just want that default of leave it as 2048 unless I change it.
But we say that you cannot update down.
That's a good point.
Well, if I'm getting 0000, then I haven't updated it to anything.
Yeah,
but yeah, technically I'm updating down.
Yeah.
But so consolidation has to update it to something. Otherwise, the balance would be skimmed immediately. If we update it to the max, you cannot decrease it. And if we update it to something less, then we have to do this logic.
But if it's zeros, we'll have to do something with, if we allow these to be included in deposits, we in the protocol will have to treat numbers that are out of this range, that are out of acceptable range somehow. So zeros in this case will need to be anyway, will will have to mean something, and by default it is like max effective balance for 0x02.
Yeah.
And if you
Or we set a
and by
gossip rule.
default by default it does mean that there is no custom ceiling, so we use all of the balance we can up to this constant that we have in configuration of this
But
parameter.
then it defaults to max effective balance, but it's still 0 in terms of its ability
Yep.
to be updated.
And then you could just make it that if you're updating to a custom balance and it's more than X ETH over what the current balance is, then you can't do it.
Well, I don't
Or
know.
something like
that.
You can set whatever you can. I mean, like you
So
can
if I've
set
got-
whatever you want there via depositing. So this is
So if I've got a
the problem.
2048 ETH validator and I set it back down to 32 ETH, that's going to be exiting 2000.
Yeah.
That's bad, right?
Yeah, it should not be allowed.
Because that's like worst case.
Yeah, we never really. Yeah, because the issue is that the sheet doesn't exit via the exit queue. It exits via the withdrawal queue.
There was something about it having to go through the exit queue on the 0x02 or something I was reading today, but I don't know whether that's still current. Is that current? Because that's a long blockage on the exit queue.
Yeah, how do we handle? No, there's a pending partial withdrawal. That's how we handle we have a queue for partial withdrawals, but we don't have a queue for regular withdrawals, which would be triggered when you're if you're able to set down.
When the sweep happens.
Yeah. So
is that a problem if we all of a sudden transfer 2000 ETH out of the balance?
yeah, like
I mean, it's
if you can
a
go
lot more
down,
than
it's a problem because that ETH would exit via the regular sweep and not via a partial withdrawal or an exit, which both have a queue. The regular sweep does not. And so we can't allow people.
well, it's paced, but it doesn't have a queue. It doesn't have a max size.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it doesn't have a sufficient.
I'm not
Have
getting
we
if-
agreed that we need custom ceilings because we are discussing now how we would implement it, but I don't think we come to agreement that we really need this one feature.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
It does sound like
Do-
a can of worms.
So
I think the case for a custom ceiling is that we have this partial withdrawal as alternative. And the problem is that there is an EL queue, which will be to activate these partial withdrawals. And it was originally designed for exits. But my feeling is that my intuition is that it will be heavily used by these partial withdrawals by staking pools, and the queue will just be long all the time, and the exit fee will just grow and grow. So it makes kind of like this original exit thing less usable for people than it was designed.
So
So,
you're
I mean,
missing a
like,
point.
yeah.
If we don't add custom ceilings, then there is an incentive for someone that could consolidate to the maximum to consolidate to the maximum if they prefer to have access to the sweep.
Okay.
Point. But is there a
That's good, isn't it?
Is that balanced out by a potential disincentive of not consolidating when you want to be in the sweep?
Yeah. If you want the sweep now, you either choose to not consolidate or consolidate fully.
So then the
I
question
would.
is like which of
Yes.
the forces is greater?
I think the risk of consolidating to the 1048 is higher than the cost of doing partial withdrawals. probably, I don't know. If it is the case, then yeah, then figures pools will just consolidate it to a certain extent and then use partial withdrawals.
What about like just having, I was gonna say, what about just having your custom ceiling always be like +1 validator until it reaches the maximum? But that's not very useful in that.
So therefore it's just the maximum.
Well,
What do you mean +1 validator? Oh,
like,
you mean as
but
in
in
like
consolidate
one?
2, your max is gonna be 96.
Consolidate 2, your max is going to be 96.
Your max is gonna be 3 validators worth of ETH.
Yeah, okay.
Consolidate 3, your max is gonna be 4 validators. You know what I'm saying? Just some kind of extra, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, I think we need another meeting. Sorry, guys. I'll put on another poll. But yeah, we did get some things done. Here I was worried we wouldn't have enough to talk about. All right. Inclusion list talk. Yeah. I think POTUS kind of killed the idea of like,
We can talk offline. Let's just chat one-on-one, Mark. I don't know if everyone wants to hear the nitty-gritty.
I won.
okay.
Well, I'll drop off at this point and leave you to it.
Yeah, I think we can call the MaxEB here. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Should I stop recording here or
Do what you like.